Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Grit and Grace podcast. Today, I'm super excited because I'm here with Joy Dickinson of Dickinson Consultants, and we're going to talk about a subject I know nothing about. I'm the typical parent who knows only that fundraising has to do with schools and all the things that we have to sell to help our kids do what they need to do, whether it's a club or a sport. And I think it's so much more than that, but I don't know it all. So, Joy, welcome to the show. Yeah, and I find that fundraising is something that I don't know. If I'm honest, I like probably a lot of parents, I see it quite negative because it's one of those things every time. And you have, two kids who are involved in sports and clubs, and so you're a parent just like me, where you're just bombarded with this fundraiser, that fundraiser. And it's that fine line of being totally frustrated, I feel, by doing all of that. Because half the stuff we have to fundraise, to be honest, I don't want. It's like, oh, I don't even like the stuff I'm selling. And then you feel like you're asking your family over and over. And at the same time, I feel this compassion or this sympathy, whatever you want to call it, towards the organizations that we have to fundraise for because budgets are getting cut everywhere, right? So, um, teach me about fundraising. So, let me just say this before we even dive into that. One, I love your website, by the way.
Oh,
Here's why
great.
I love it. Your website is probably the most one of the most simple ones I've probably ever seen. You're super simple and like you don't I did not look at your website and go, "I have no idea what she does," or "What all does she do?" You're, like, super to the point, easy to understand, and you have so before I ask you to teach
Sure.
me, you have this quote literally right under Dickinson Consultants. It says, "Better nonprofits, better world." Like, as simple as you are, why that quote or those 2 sentences?
So I really think that a lot of us want someone to save us, right? We want government to save us. We want money to save us. We
Yeah.
want, something else to save us. And at the end of the day, it's neighbors, it's people helping people. It's us rolling
Mhm.
up our sleeves and helping each other. And in my experience, the way that comes out in the world is the nonprofit sector. That's what we have
Mm.
kind of chosen as a society is how we help each other. So whether it's the food bank or a homeless shelter or your local parent teacher organization, right? That's how we have kind of chosen to roll up our sleeves and help each other. So when I say better nonprofits, better world, that's what I mean. I'm not in it for the money. I'm not here to make another regulation. I'm not here to make myself famous. I'm here to help others and love others. That's what I mean. Yeah.
I said to your husband, "Oh, I have to have your wife on here because, she knows, the whole fundraising." She actually has something to share I know nothing about, and I'm so glad. That statement alone, Joy, makes me so happy that you're a guest on the show because fully believe that we are stronger together than apart, and I think it's all about living shoulder to shoulder. And we don't do that really I shouldn't say that, we don't do that very well. I think as a whole, we're not doing
Right.
it very well. I think there are pockets of people, much like yourself, super passionate about helping people. Um, this is gonna be a really ignorant question. Is fundraising only for nonprofits?
It's a really good question. So, I mean, that's where I spend most of my time. But I mean, for-profit companies raise capital stack, right, to do new buildings and uh, venture capital. But that's not the kind of work that I do. So, I mean, I don't.
Okay, so you specialize in particular in the nonprofit
Right,
arena.
right. There are business grants out there and things, but I don't specialize in that. So,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay, so there are people who do what you do, but they do it in another sector, like,
yeah.
pro
There are small
see?
business grants. So if you go to Business Oregon, you will learn all kinds of grants that are to help small businesses start. So capital you need to buy your equipment, to pay off, or pay down your lease while you're first starting. If you want to open up a business in an urban renewal zone, there are all kinds of things. But I don't specialize in that, so I don't want to provide advice I can't back up.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, 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 that's good. Again, I know nothing about this stuff. Um, so okay, so on your website, you have these 5 like bullet points about what you do. Um, it says grants, development, assessment and planning, strategic planning, executive coaching, succession planning.
Yeah.
That's what you offer to all your clients that come. Is that right?
Yeah. So I like to say that um, we help nonprofits raise money and plan for the future, right? So the only way that you're going to raise money is if you have a good plan, you know where you're headed, and you know where you're going. Um, fundraising is all about finding partners who is along the ride for where you want to go. Um, I, it's okay in fundraising to get a no. In fact, I want people to say no to me. Because if I come to you and I say, hey, we are building a new homeless shelter, or hey, we are raising funds for the kids' soccer team, it's okay if you say no because that's not your passion. And it gets me closer to whoever is passionate about that because then I find my team and then I find who wants to get this done, right?
Mm.
Like my clients range the gamut, right? Like I have folks building affordable housing, I have a zoo, right? So like
Wow.
very disparate initiatives, but what they all have in common is a very passionate group of people who are saying this is who we are, what we're about. And when you have that, resources find a way. So a lot of it is about grants, right? So that's kind of a big part of how do you kind of find dollars from institutions, so whether that's government or foundations, but
Okay.
also having that really solid plan so that when you go out to the community and you ask donors, you know who you are and where you're headed, and you've got a clear case for support. So you're not just randomly saying, can I have $5,000? But here's the change your $5,000 will make. Um,
So
Go
do
ahead.
you Oh, go ahead. No, no.
I can say I could kind of give you my background and bio if that helps. I don't know if
Yeah, well, one of my questions was, which I was going to get to after this, but let's just go there. I was like, how did you know going into college or while you were in college, this is where you wanted to go? Like, how'd you get into it?
yeah, I have no idea. So I went to college thinking I was going to be a physical therapist. Like, I don't know, feels like every third high school student I talk to right now. My daughter's a senior, so I'm talking to lots of high schoolers. And I got to college, and I took, anatomy and biology and all the things. And I really enjoyed it. And then I went and shadowed a physical therapist, and I realized I was not patient enough to be a physical therapist. You have to be very patient. And I went back to my college counselor and I said, I can't do this. What should I do? And I said, what's the fastest way to get out of college with all the credits that I have? And she said, oh, well, you can graduate with health science. Health science is pretty general. I was like, well, I don't know what to do with that. Well, I ended up getting a internship with the state of California, um, and a very interesting organization um, called the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development. It's very bureaucratic. And the job I was on evaluated if not for profit hospitals was actually improving their community health. So, every hospital that is nonprofit, so like Salem Health here in town,
Okay.
they have to demonstrate that the taxes they would have paid, right, are actually, that revenue is benefiting the community. So, that can be in charity care, free care they're providing for their community. That can be in grants, it can be all kinds of ways. And so, my job as a 22-year-old was to travel all over California and figure that out. Like I looked at balance sheets and I looked at grant programs and like were the hospitals putting the money where their mouth was? Were they actually improving their
Mm.
communities? So I learned a lot about community development. I learned a lot about how do we improve health at scale in those years. And then I got hired away by a nonprofit that had been given a large grant from the California Endowment to do grassroots community development. And so I became a program officer, and we gave small grants. I guess they were large at the time, 25 years
Yeah.
ago, to small nonprofits to help them do community health improvement efforts. So things like walking trails and teen centers and senior centers and community gardens. And my job was to help them launch the program, but then figure out a plan to sustain it after our 3-year grant was gone. So I
Mm.
had to help them, hey, who might want to fund this teen center after our 3 year grant is over? So, are we going to create a group of parents that are going to fund it, that they're going to, have bake sales and silent auctions, right? Or are we going
Wow.
to find dollars from the city? Is there a local tax revenue that would make sense to fund this after school program? Like, how are we going to make sure that this community improvement initiative goes forward? So I learned a lot about fundraising in those years. After that, I went and worked for a domestic violence agency as one of their fundraisers. When I was there, we uh, doubled the staff size, doubled the shelter size. I learned a lot about fundraising in those years. And then in 2012, we moved to Salem. My husband was the vice president of advancement for the gospel mission here in Salem, and I had a baby and a toddler, and I didn't want to work in an office anymore. And this is 2012 when no one knew what Zoom was and
Yeah.
people didn't really work from home. So I sort of started calling up old employers and trying to figure out how I could work from my house, and just started grant writing from there. And I enjoyed it a lot. And now it's been 14 years, and
Wow.
I have 8 consultants that work with me. We help about 3 dozen nonprofit clients, mostly on the West Coast, every year. A lot with grant writing, so finding the grants, writing the grants, managing the grants, but then also with the planning. How do you create a good plan so that you know where you're headed and the change you're seeking to make? And then a lot of coaching of younger grant writers or younger development staff, people that are new to fundraising. And then, as executive directors are looking to retire or move on, how do you prepare a nonprofit to make that transition? So that's kind of where my work has taken me. But yeah, it's not a path I could have written.
What yeah, that's wild. To me, it's wild, and yet not you go, "Oh my goodness," which first, my son actually thought he wanted to be a physical therapist in
Right.
school. It's like, you're so right on. He was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go." His girlfriend went as well. She actually knew what she wanted to do, and she is a physical therapist today. My son took, I think, one science class, I think it was anatomy or something. He was like, "Oh yeah, I don't want to do this at all." He now is in, scouting and recruiting and stuff at the college level, and was not his, much like yours. Um, but what I find really interesting when I hear people's stories, especially like yours, like you're always being prepared for something. So like even in like, well, then I moved to this job and then I had that role. It's like, oh my gosh, the variety of different things you did that actually prepared you to probably do your job really well today. It's no coincidence, like not planned, and yet what you've learned and what you've done. I always find that so fascinating to hear in people's stories. Um, do you have one of the something in those jobs, like, do you have one that you're like, "Oh, I loved doing that."
Well, I must say, I mean, I've been consulting the longest, so I guess I love this the most.
Do you?
Um, oh, yeah. I mean, I'm 14 years in, so I've done this the longest of all the things I've done. What I love the most is that I solve a problem an hour, right? Like, I'm constantly changing gears. I am
Mhm.
never bored. And I get to meet people that are all in.
Mm.
I don't walk into a room where people are phoning it in, right? No one is phoning it in my life.
Yeah.
Everyone is coming with their whole heart, with their whole self, wanting to solve a very real problem. And I love that. I I couldn't I could not just show up to work. That's not the kind of person I am. So when I bring on a client, if their passion feeds my passion,
Yeah.
and so when they get me into a room, I was in a room yesterday and they want to launch a $15 million campaign, and the overwhelm and the excitement, it feels the same. Like
Does it?
it feels the same. It's the same emotion, right? Like and we'll find a path. We'll figure it out together. But I'm
So what
excited
does
for
that look
them.
like? So you take a so you okay, this client has this goal, and then what is that like for you? Like, what I don't even know the stages, really. It's like,
Mm.
so you say it feels the same. So, like, from here, where do you go?
Well, when a client comes to me and says they want to launch a campaign, the first step is it feasible, right? So I have to look at a whole bunch of different things. So, what does their donor file look like? How many donors do they have? How long have they been giving to them? At what levels? Um, what is the potential for those donors to give more? And then what are the institutions that might give to them? Foundations, local, state, federal government. And that's kind of like the funding path. And then there's the feasibility of the project. So, what is it that they want to build? Does it make sense? Will it pencil out, right? Whatever it is that they want to build, can it be sustained in the long term? Does it make sense on that in that neighborhood for those people? And so
Wow.
usually a capital campaign will start with kind of a feasibility study. So sometimes 4 or 6 months of deep work. Can we actually do this thing we think we want to do? So talking to the leaders of the organization, the board of directors, key donors. Um, we have an idea, we have a vision, but now getting down to brass tacks, do we have the donors, the funders, and an actual concept of a plan that can be realized? An important process. I just finished a capital campaign with a client. It was so beautiful and wonderful, and the grand opening. I was crying. Like, it's when it all comes together, it's this beautiful thing, but it's years in the making. And donors that have been with the client, for sometimes decades,
Wow.
and so it's fun to see. It's fun to see the whole arc, um, but it isn't overnight. Sometimes people come to me and they just say, "We want to do it." I'm like, "Well, it takes years, right? Building relationships with people and donors and having the conversations. It's not a switch I can turn on. Um, it's
And
a
obviously,
process.
they all take a variety of different time periods to get done, depending on the project. But like on an average project,
Yeah,
how long does that? You said years. Is the average project actually do take? Like I come to you and I was like, Joy, I have a dream and I have a goal and I have this idea. I have some people investing in me.
yeah.
Is literally okay? Well, this isn't going to happen in 2 months. Hold, keep your pants on and
And a typical capital campaign for an established nonprofit with a donor file, 2 to 3 years. If you and I are starting from zero, like you've never raised a penny, it could be 5 to 10 years. Like, I mean, we've got a whole other all other things to talk about. So,
mm,
but it also depends on what it is that you want to do, right?
yeah,
If you want to build a $10 million youth center, or if you want to start a small food pantry in your neighborhood, like it depends on the scope of what you want to do.
right.
But yeah, of how long that might take.
So is there again, probably a really ignorant question. Is there a difference between grants and other fundraising in what you do? Is there
Yeah. Yes. So yes. So grants is institutional giving, right? And then there's individual giving, right? It's from donors. Um, it's two kinds of fundraising. So you submit applications to foundations. I mean, everything is relationship based, right? You always have to have a relationship with a
Mhm.
funder, but foundations and even government agencies have set up a path. You may apply in this way at this time, answer these questions, submit these forms. Then we will consider your request and let you know. So there's kind of a path that they have set up. Um, Individuals are a little more messy, right? You need to have a connection, you need to have a relationship, you need to have conversations, you need to have trust.
Yeah.
So when you're raising money, there's two different approaches for two different kinds of funders, right? The institutional givers and the individual givers.
Mm,
Um, and it's always built on, transparency, truth, and
sure.
relationship building. It's all of that. Like, sometimes people want me to well, just spin it. I never spin. The only answer is the truth.
Mm,
Say what it is you want to say. Say what the project is, what the money is for.
yeah.
You will find your people. You will find your funders. You will find your donors who wants to do this with you. It's Don't try to fit a funder or fit a donor into your mission, right? Say who you are and what you want to do, and you will find the folks that want to do it with you.
Mm, yeah. What would you say is some of the biggest, I guess, I would say misconceptions, if I could say it like that, that people think about fundraising and grants?
Oh, the biggest one I hear is that just get a grant and it'll fix it. Like, just get a grant, one grant. We'll just get a grant, right? People think that fundraising is one grant, and that it's no, fundraising is a mosaic, right, of
Mm,
dozens of grants and hundreds of donors and a special event and maybe a little earned income and maybe some interest income. It's Fundraising is a mosaic that you put together, and you need diverse revenue streams to be a strong nonprofit. You don't want to be reliant on any one stream because streams change as laws change, as the economies change, as the needs of the people that you serve change. So you want to constantly be changing the way your revenue comes in so that you can weather the change. Um,
That's good.
yeah, our like for example, foundations, they change their priorities every 3 to 5 years. So even if you've been getting a large grant every year, 3 to 5 years, it will change. So
Mm.
you're always having to bring in new donors, new funders, new ways of revenue, so that as things change, you remain strong.
You find that piece exciting? Because I hear that and I go, "Oh my gosh, that feels so exhausting," but I know it's not in my wheelhouse.
Well, it is exhausting, but I think it's the same wherever you go, right? Like, I, it's the same in sales, right? Like you can't count on your same customers every day, I don't think, and it's going to be
Well,
the same
sure,
in same in
but I also feel like people are either really good at sales or really not,
yeah,
like, I find that exhausting too.
yeah. No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, yeah. Now how do you ever get clients that come into you as a nonprofit, but they're really profit? Like, do you help people, or have you come into people who are probably more profit or nonprofit, or the people you work with, like they know that they know they're already established nonprofit?
Well, people come to me with ideas, but you have to, I mean, be an established nonprofit in order to solicit funds. So,
Mm,
if you come to me and you aren't a 501(c)(3), that's the first thing I'm going to have you go do is go and become a 501(c)(3) because you can't.
gotcha.
I, as a professional registered fundraising counsel, cannot go and solicit funds on your behalf without you being a registered 501(c)(3) nonprofit. Um,
Yeah.
you know, uh, Now, one misconception people have is that just because you're nonprofit means that you can't get a salary. People get paid
Mm,
at nonprofits. You can get a salary. What the nonprofit means is that the board of directors of the nonprofit, that they do not earn a profit. So that if the nonprofit makes money, if there is a surplus at the end of the year, if there is more revenue than expenses, that revenue goes back to serve the mission of the nonprofit. So, for example, if you have a food bank and there's a surplus at the end of the year, that money goes to buy more food at the food bank, right? Or buy more equipment for the food bank, right? That it doesn't go to the shareholders, the board members
oh,
that
gotcha. Yeah.
run the food bank. That's the
Hmm.
difference, the main difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to invest it back in.
You got to invest it back into the mission of the organization.
Makes
But people
sense.
still get salaries and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see how that's a misconception because you hear that a lot with some people, and I think it feels like, almost a disrespect towards nonprofits. You know what I mean? When I hear that, especially because just being on the side that does work has worked with a lot of nonprofits over the years, meaning like, church or community
Yeah.
support services, there's a lot of that. Like, they expect you to be a martyr and expect you to just serve and live on poverty, um, and yet they need they hope that you would still serve. It's like this.
Yeah. Yeah, one
Mm,
thing I talk about with boards of directors a lot, and if you are a donor to a nonprofit, if you're on the board of a nonprofit, pay your nonprofit staff a living wage. They are the lifeline of your organization.
mhm.
And a lot of nonprofits are started by a founder who is willing to not make very much money, right? They're willing
Yeah,
to kind of live that sacrificial life. And I love that value and I love that, you know, way of living, right? But when time comes and that person retires or they have a health crisis and you need to replace that person and you can't because you can't hire someone at what they were making, the nonprofit's mission will suffer. And so paying your staff a living wage so that when it comes time for transition, you can pay the next person a living wage is going to invest in the mission long term. And I've seen it a number of times when someone retires or there's a health crisis, and then all of a sudden they need two people to replace that person, or they need to almost double the wage to really recruit the quality candidate they need. And it's a big lift for the nonprofit to raise those additional dollars. So it's important now that the boards are looking at that and saying, hey, are we paying a reasonable wage to our staff so that we can be competitive in the marketplace, right? And retain
yeah.
people long term. It's important.
Well, it's true, especially I feel like a lot of people who do give their life to a nonprofit are super passionate about what they do,
Yeah,
right? You don't so there is talk of like, why would you want to do that? There's no money in nonprofit. Exactly like what you're saying. And people you hear this all the time too. Work for a nonprofit, not rich or anything, because we don't really get paid that much. It's all those I feel obstacles that come out of or come against just non the word nonprofit. Um, but they're some of the most passionate people. They'll do it for free if they
yeah,
have to, yeah, which I feel like my heart is really I think I said this to Kyle, your husband. My heart is really it's a nonprofit heart. It's like it's probably going to be the wrong mindset. I'll do it for free. But man, it'd be nice to get paid for all the work that you do because it's no less important than those who have a job, even though it's my job. It's that people expect you to be the servant. They don't want to pay you anything, call it whatever. And then, and the community needs these things, like whether it's in a church or whether it's like helping a zoo or, the local shelters, whether it's animal people, whatever. It's so needed. So why do we have that mentality? Like, why do you think that's in our community?
well, I think that the nonprofit sector actually launched many years ago, right? Kind of the churches launched it, right? So the initial orphanages, soup kitchens, homeless shelters were launched by mostly Catholic churches. Those wages were folks that chose to live on a vow of poverty, and they were paid by the patrons of the church. So that started there, right? That if you go look at those things. And then also, we used to live in a society where most families had one income and they could live on that, and the spouse that stayed home could volunteer their time without needing an income. So we had a world where that could exist. We don't live in that world anymore. And so, in the 60s and 70s, when the nonprofit sector professionalized and government started contracting with nonprofits to provide social services, that all changed and it became a profession. But those feelings that it should be voluntary and poverty wages remain, and it is something that I'm always working against. Right, like this,
Yeah.
the sector employs 1 in 10 people. I think is the most recent number. It is a huge sector. Um,
Wow. So is part of your because I would think part of again, people who are I've been in the nonprofit world my entire career really, and yet I am one of those parents like, "Oh, not another fundraiser." So I kind of understand both sides, but is part of your work educating people on that very question that I just asked? Like just the way you say, and the reason why I'm asking is because just the way you say it to educate on what it used to be to what it is today, you're like, I already see that a little different. So do you do that kind of education in what you do? Not to your just your clients, I mean to the public.
I don't know. My clients keep me pretty busy, so
Yeah.
yeah,
There are just some people in their own field they're like, I feel responsible. I get very passionate about talking about this and I'll talk to whoever. So like sometimes I just think it's man, if somebody would educate us like that, just the simplicity of, hey, this is how it started. This is and it, like today, and then you're like, okay, now I could see why. But here's the narrative we hear all the time. Well, budgets are getting cut. We have to raise it somehow. But then it's like it almost falls short. It's like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
hmm,
But you keep asking the same people for the same amount of money. It's like even in the school systems, it's the same parents who are helping and doing, and they're
yeah,
burnt out. And they're the ones who are trying to live on nothing as well. It's
yeah.
like this cycle. So it's just some of those, man, we need more people to educate like you do.
Hmm.
Simplicity of why fundraising here? Why, nonprofit? Did you think X, Y, and Z? Well, it's a lot more than that, actually.
Right. Well, and not, we're in interesting days, right? And so,
Yeah.
um, as we face budget shortfalls, private philanthropy might not be able to pick up all the pieces. And so some of those are going to be hard
Mhm.
conversations, right? at the local level in our PTA meetings and, in our communities? And how do we start to speak to those in power about the pain that we are experiencing as school, budgets are cut, as
Yeah.
healthcare budgets are cut? Like, what does that actually mean for us? And I can't fill all, not I personally, but we can't fill all those holes. And so where private philanthropy, right, and local volunteerism and the nonprofit sector have come together with government funds is where we have had this great nexus for a lot of years. And when one of those is faltering, it's hard for the other ones to pick up the pieces. And so, I'm concerned, right? As fewer people have healthcare coverage, what's going to happen in our ER department? What's going to happen with our free clinics? We're going to see skyrocketing demand, right? We're seeing health cuts at all of our school districts. I'm not just here at Salem Kaiser, but Portland Public. That's going to be a problem, and I can't solve that with bake sales and private fundraising.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are conversations at policy level and tax levels, but we also need everyday people to understand those things so that when they vote, they understand what their tax dollars are doing and buying. So it's all of it. It's all of it together. The diverse fundraising I was talking about. Not just diverse
Yeah.
fundraising for you at your local nonprofit, but diverse fundraising for our schools. Like, how do the dollars get to our schools, and how do we support them in a healthy way? Um,
Mhm.
it's it is
Well, especially because you hear
complex.
the teachers who are so passionate about their students
Yeah.
that they're not, the budget's hitting. They're making nothing. I mean, they're
Yeah.
responsible to raise like the generations, and they make nothing.
Yeah.
And yet, even the extra, you hear all these teachers say, I bought all the supplies, or I bought this for this project out of my own pocket because I wasn't going to get it from, the budget's cut. So they still have a heart for kids, but they're taxed at a very high. It's a high expense for teachers, which is so hard. And I just, man, I wish I would have heard the very question that about education that you just shared about. This is how it started. I would have been like, this makes so much sense. And maybe everybody knows it. I'm the only one who doesn't, but um, I've never heard somebody say it that way. I had an attorney. I almost became a nonprofit. Again, I'm very passionate about what I do and have had people encourage me to become a nonprofit. So I started actually going down that route and met with an attorney 3 times. And we had this conversation. Again, it was one of those education things that you went, wow, nobody is said like that. But he said, a lot of people are angry with the government because they think the government should be doing everything. And his role was helping nonprofits become nonprofits legally and filing with the state to become one and looking, could I actually file in a way that will help you become a nonprofit? So we are talking all through that. Like, do I even have kind of like, would this even work? And he said, a lot of what the government will look at is, do you help carry the burden with us? And it was like, oh, interesting. And the other thing he said was, everybody thinks the government should be paying for everything. And that's not feasible. Like they can't. And
Mhm.
so then it was, and what you offer to help people actually helps carry the burden. So long story short, I found that really interesting that on that level as well was we tend to look at all these different places as being the answer, and it sounds like it's a little bit of everything.
Right. How do we come together? Right. Like,
Yeah,
how,
how
how
do
do
we
we
come.
all how do we all come together?
Yeah, yeah, so, okay, so then the other thing that you do is you do executive coaching, and you do succession
Session planning.
planning,
Yeah.
guidance for your team to find the next visionary leader is actually what it says on your
Yeah.
site. Why did you pick, like, why that?
So it is not uncommon, right, that a nonprofit's executive will be around for a long time, 10 years, 20 years, maybe a founder. And when it's time for that person to retire, it is a big transition point for a nonprofit. And having an external voice is hugely valuable, right? So to
Yeah.
come in, guide the board of directors through a process to create that job description. What is it that we really need in our next season? almost like a mini strategic plan, like where are we headed and what are the skills that we need to get there? And then listen to the board, right? Or sorry, listen to the staff, excuse me. What has been great about this executive? What are that
Mm,
executive's blind spots or weaknesses? What do we need the new executive? And then craft a process for finding the new executive and then going through an interview process that kind of onboards them in a healthy way. It's
mm.
it's hiring an executive director for a nonprofit is not like a one and done. Put a job listing up, get 20 resumes, interview 3 people, and be done. It can be a 6, 9 month, even longer process, and needs to have a lot of engagement.
Mm.
You want to have the board on board, you want to have the staff on board, you want to have key donors on board, and you want to make sure that that person can carry the mission forward. So it needs a third objective person. A lot of times I find my role as a consultant is to be that third party, right? Like I it's not my job. I have no skin in the game, so I can say the boldest truth, the bluntest truth, the elephant in the room, right? Is that the right
Yeah, yeah,
idiom?
yeah.
Right. Right. Like, so I'm not worried about stepping on toes. I can kind of call things out that maybe people in the room are worried about, offending the previous executive or
Mm.
worried about, damaging a relationship. I'm not worried about those things. I want to keep the mission of the organization central or at the center of the conversation and the plan. So it helps have an outside voice, but it's fun to do. Yeah.
Do you find that a lot of, nonprofits don't do that? Like, they don't even and then all of a sudden their leader's retiring or stepping aside for something else or stepping down, whatever, and they're just not even prepared. Is that pretty common?
Bigger the nonprofit, that usually they have a plan. Sometimes there's an heir apparent internal, which isn't a bad thing. Um, but still making sure that there's a process that the heir apparent goes through the vetting process, that the board, the staff, the donors get to be part of that selection process is still a good thing to do. Um, what's more problematic is when it's a smaller nonprofit, right? And there just isn't that infrastructure. And then if the executive director has a health concern or wins the lottery and moves to Hawaii, um, how do we make sure that the mission continues when they have all the institutional memory and all the donor relationships? Right? How do we really like make sure that the organization has a path forward? Um, that's usually where it's a little more involved. But
Yeah, and I think with a nonprofit, especially, like, in these moments, to me, I feel like your work is it requires a lot of endurance and it's the long game, right? You're with
yeah.
these clients. You have to get them to think very long term, as
Yes,
opposed to, working with somebody in for profit, whatever. It's a like, let's get the job done, move on. And you're really, you have to, I would think you have to help people think very long term and really not so much here and now, what's best for the leader. And oh, yes, this is about relationship, but actually it goes even beyond that. It better be about the vision and
yeah,
the mission because of that long term. It's really nobody owns it. The board runs
yeah,
it and, yeah, all those things. So it's a totally different, mindset.
right. A nonprofit's job is to work itself out of its own, you know, it should no longer be in existence, right? Like if you're a food bank, right, your goal is to end hunger.
Yeah.
So this like
Yeah. Yeah.
big, hairy, audacious goal. Um, I forgot where I was going with that statement, but um, it is always long term. So I mean, I I have 3 dozen clients. I've had clients with me 12 years. I've had clients with me 7 years. So I mean,
Mm.
once they come on, I I don't let them go. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we're always uncovering, how do we go deeper, stronger, and more strategic. And it is the work never ends.
Yeah.
Um,
But it
because
sounds like
yeah,
you look at it more as partnership as opposed to like, I'm a consultant, I do your work, we pay me, see you later. Yours
you're
really
right. Yeah,
is.
I'm not a transactional consultant. You're right. You don't come to me and get a pretty report and leave. I mean, I do lots of reports, so but I'm in it for the long haul, right? So if you come to me, we're gonna go somewhere together.
Mhm. So somebody's gonna watch this episode. What are the things that what is it that, is like a, I would say your ideal client, but what what am I trying to say? Is like how do they know, "Oh, I need to call her." Who are the ideal who would those people be?
Yeah. So I have a team of consultants. So you might not be working directly with me, which is okay. But if you need help, usually what I'm looking for is folks that need help in a couple of different places. So let's say you think that you have a nonprofit that is fundable from grants, but you don't have a strategy. You don't know where to look, who to go to. That's a common service that we do. You come, you kind of explain to me your programs and services, or what you would like to do, your programs and services. And then
Yeah.
my team and goes and finds all the prospects that you can apply to and creates a grant calendar for you. And then says, here are all the, here's kind of the universe of private, state, local, and federal funders that might support your work. And then sometimes we then write those grants and kind of do that kind of full service grant management. And then other times the client will take that list and run with it. Like maybe they have someone that has some grant writing skills, they just need to know where to go. So kind of that can go two ways there. So that's one way people come in. Another way people come in is that they need a plan, right? So they've been kind of
Mm.
doing business as usual for the last 5, 10 years, and they find themselves at a crossroads. What do we do now? They have a new leader. The needs of their population is changing. Their revenue is way up or the revenue is way down, and they need a plan. So they come to me and we do some strategic planning together. Another good client is when they've had a changeover in staff. So a new executive director, a new development director, and they
Mm.
need an executive coach. So a lot of times at a nonprofit, the development director and the executive director are the only people in the shop that do that work, right? The executive director
Yeah.
has no peers, right? They're their own person, and the development director is the only person doing fundraising, right?
Yeah.
Or one of two or three. And so having someone that's been in their shoes, that has done the work, that can provide coaching along the way, is a really valuable asset. So
Mm.
those are kind of the biggest buckets of work if you think you
Mm.
need help in those areas that folks usually come to me.
Now, do you work with people who literally just find you and say, "I have a desire, a dream"? Do you take those like hasn't even been born yet? Do you do those?
Most of the time I don't. So if you have $0 and zero, if you have not started yet, I'm usually not your person.
Yeah.
Because you usually have to have some sort of proof of concept, right? Like um, you've raised some money, you've tried some things,
Yeah.
um, you've got your 501(c)(3) before. And I say it because hiring a consultant costs money. So before you start investing in my services, right, you need to have shown that what you do has some sort of proof of concept.
Yeah.
A lot of times a board member will pay for a consultant services and kind of get things going, but it's hard to ask someone who has a kind of a hope right out of their own pocket to pay. That makes it's a big leap.
Yeah, I was just saying, because I hear this quite often. It's like, "Oh, I always dreamed of doing that," and it is a nonprofit, or I want to start this, and it sounds very nonprofit, and yet most people stop with, "I don't know what to do with that." It's like, where do people go from there before they get to you? How does that?
Yeah, if when people tell that to me, my number one recommendation is to go find the nonprofit in town that does that thing and work for them. So let's say you want to work for victims of domestic violence. Go work for
Yeah,
Center for Hope and Safety. Let's say you want to help people that are homeless, right? Go work for Community Action Agency or the Gospel Mission. Let's say you want to work with, teenage moms. Like go find the nonprofit that is doing that work and work with them.
that's
It's
good.
I there are so many nonprofits, you don't need to start a new one.
Yeah,
If you truly cannot find what it is that you want to do, give me a call. I'm happy to chat through it with you for 30 minutes. But
yeah,
I bet it's out there.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they need you. Like I want to say, like they need a passionate professional person who is willing to dig in and do the work. So
Hmm.
I'm a short story, and I didn't even talk about this in my bio, but when I first started, I worked for Lutheran Social Services as a case manager. This is very brief because I couldn't do it. They hired me to help foster youth aging out of their foster homes. So they're 18. When you turn 18, the foster parents no longer get their subsidy to care for you. Some foster parents are lovely and let you stay there until you kind of get your feet under you. Some of them are not. And so my job was to help the ones whose foster parents say, here's the door. And so my job was to help them find a job, find an apartment on, basically no money, and get into either college or whatever they wanted to do. And it was heartbreaking, right? So these are 18-year-old kids. I have an 18-year-old.
I was gonna say, we both have 18-year-olds. Could you imagine? Yeah.
I was watching it. And at the time I was 23, 24, helping 18-year-olds try to launch. And it wrecked me. I was leaving kids underneath bridges and cars because there were no shelters that could take them. And I didn't have, there was not enough money to get them into a hotel that night. So I'm trying to scrounge up money to get them into a hotel till I could find, till like their subsidy payment would get in so they could get into a transitional housing. But there's these
Mm.
huge gaps. I mean, it was awful. And so it wrecks me. I go home every night. I'm awful. It was awful. And Kyle's like, my husband says, you can't do this. He's like, you're not functioning. So I go to my boss and I'm like, I can't do this work. I can't function in my life. And she's like, but we need you. She's like, you're passionate about this work. I'm like, I know, but I can't function. She's like, well, would you go to the administrative side of the house and do the work to keep us going? And so I moved to which is what I do now, right? The administrative side of the
Wow.
house,
Yeah.
whatever it is, the fundraising, the bookkeeping, the doing the work of helping the nonprofit run so that those who can be under bridges with 18-year-olds, I want to lift them up, right?
Yeah.
If you have the ability to do that, please do it. I literally know I cannot. It wrecked me.
Yeah.
But I'm going to spend my entire life, and I now have 25 years, raising money so that you can go do that.
Wow.
Anyway. So if you have an idea and you want to start a nonprofit, there's one out there that's doing it, and they need you.
Yeah. So is that when your career really pivoted? That it kind of took off
I
there?
mean, it was a very short 6-week stint I did at a nonprofit, and that
Oh,
was post the state internship before I went and did the program officer job with the Center for Civic Partnerships. But I don't always tell it because it's a very emotional story. But
yeah.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah, we both have 18-year-olds. That would wreck me.
yeah.
Yeah. I could be in trenches for a lot of things, but when it comes to like that kind of stuff, I'm not so sure I could do that either.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of children, you have two.
I
So
do.
I'd love hearing moms talk about their kids because I'm a mom and we'd love to do that. It's our pride and joy. And when you go to your social media, your Facebook, you could tell, yep, she loves being a mom because the thing that you actually do post about are your kids. And our girls go to school together. And I have to say, Mia looks the same way back. Some kids look identical from when they were younger. Mia looks the same back then that she does now, just older. Like she hasn't changed much.
Very distinctive face. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just I have a couple kids like that, but some couple of my girls, like they don't look anything
Yeah.
like they did when they were babies. You're like, wow, you changed so much. Like when you look at Mia, she looks
Yeah.
identical. It's adorable. Um, Tell me two things. So you have a daughter and a son. I love hearing. Give me two words that describe each one of your kids.
Yeah. So Mia is a 18 senior at West Salem High. She she loves music, and she loves. I mean, she lives boldly, right?
Hmm.
She feels everything. So, she loves art. You turn on a song, she knows every word and she knows what the artist meant. Like, just, um, she's an empath in ways that I could never be. So she gets in touch with all of the emotions. When she was little, she would come home from school and I would say, "How was your day?" And she would tell me how everyone in the class did that day, how their day was. Well, so and so
Mm.
had a hard day because of this, and so had a good day because of that. And like she told me how the whole class did. Like she's such an empath. And Nathan is he is he's very driven. So he is a runner. He told me this morning he'll run 47 miles this week. So with his
Oh,
track team.
wow. Cross
So,
country?
cross country, and then now it's distance with the track team. So it's like the same thing, but instead of running in the woods, now they run around a circle. So I have two very different children. One, definitely like the creative free spirit, and one the driven, which it just makes for hilarious dinner time conversations. And
Isn't that the best? Well, it's the best until they start arguing. You're like, okay, I think we're done here.
yeah,
That's the way I feel
but
with my two youngest that are home.
yeah, we are not bored. So we have a
Uh-huh.
lot of fun.
Yeah. I think one of the sweetest stories that I heard you guys share about your son is that every time Mia performs, he gets tears in his eyes. That is one of the sweetest sibling stories. I'll never forget that story because I adore my brother. And so when I hear stories like that, it's so
Yeah,
touching.
it's he's not as emotional as Mia, but when she performs at the end of it, he holds her and hugs her and tears up. It's just adorable.
Because what's the age
So
difference between them?
3 years. So she's
Okay.
18, he's 15.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was me and my brother as well. Yeah, 2 years, 9 months. And I adored him. He's my younger brother, but um now life with Kyle.
Oh yeah.
Never a dull moment. So your husband, I find, is quite humorous and loves to make people laugh like mine does. So I relate. I watch Kyle with people and I'm like, hey, you're pretty similar to my husband. Um, Tell me what is life like with Kyle?
We've been married 25 years, and I mean, Kyle's who you see is who you get.
Yeah.
We laugh a lot. Kyle is a very passionate person. We have lots of long conversations about everything. Um, we were at a dinner the other night, and a friend comes up behind us, and he just says, "I just want to be a fly in the wall at dinner at your house." Just listening to Kyle and I talk about. So, it is always a lively conversation between he and I. Who knew we would end up in such similar industries? So he's the executive director of Salem Leadership Foundation. He builds, capacity in neighborhoods and nonprofits, just helping them love each other, love neighbors. It's a great organization. You can check it out. But we laugh a lot. We love to read. We love movies. We go to concerts. He loves the Blazers. We follow the
He sure
Giants.
does. You
Yeah.
know, during the auction for the raffle for West Salem High School,
Oh yeah.
he literally texted me to find out if he won. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, Kyle. You didn't win. I felt
Oh, he
so
might have put in
bad.
50 tickets in that auction box.
Yeah.
But when Kyle goes around town, I mean, everyone is his friend. He has not met a person that's not his friend, and which I think people just feel
Well, you do get that
connected
feeling
to
when you're
him.
with him is just he does make you feel, yeah, everybody's a friend.
Yeah.
And I would say he definitely is a connector. He said, and I asked him, what does he love about what he does? Because he meets with people, it seems like all day long.
Yeah,
And he just
all
said, I
day.
love connecting people. And you could feel that from him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. His work is very broad, so he knows the whole town. Where my work is very deep, so we've
it's good balance.
yeah.
Who's more talkative, him or you?
I mean, he's more talkative.
Yeah. That's why I think Patrick is more talkative for the most part. He will talk and talk and talk, and I'll be quiet. And he'll say, "You're so quiet," and I'll be like, "Well, there's no room," And so we have a good joke about that too because we're polar opposite, like so polar opposite, and yet it works really well. Did you guys meet in college? 25 years, right
Yes.
outside of college,
So
college?
we went to Sacramento State. So I went in as a freshman. He was a junior transfer. We met when he transferred in as a junior, and then we got married the year after I graduated. Yeah, the year after he graduated. He's 1 year younger than me. I had to do the math. So 2001.
Fun.
Yeah.
Marriage is fun, isn't it?
It is fun. I think about how much I loved him in 2001, and I cannot describe the way I love him now. Like it
That's the
is,
way I feel.
mhm.
And
It is
I
a whole
feel
different
like,
animal.
right? I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like I have fought and put in so much time for this marriage. It's like, no, I worked too hard for what we have today. And I'm so grateful that I did. Like we talk about that a lot. It's what would have happened if we quit? What would happen if we quit at this point or that point or this point? And now I look and I'm like, oh heck no, you're not getting out of this. We fought too hard for this one. Um, and I'm glad we did.
And I'm glad that he was willing, right? Like, in order for it to work, you have to have a partner that's all in. And Kyle's all in. And if you've
Yeah.
met Kyle, he is all in. He's an
Hmm.
all
Well,
in
he sure is.
person.
Did he have to do that golf event in the pouring rain
Yeah,
as a dinosaur?
that is happening right now. He is
Oh,
at
right now.
Rainfest raising money for Salem Leadership Foundation in a dinosaur costume. He is all in.
Wow. So if people wanted to donate to that, can they still do that on behalf of
Yeah,
him? Like,
yes, they
okay, so
can.
give us the information because maybe somebody will.
Oh,
How would
good.
they
Now
do
you're
that?
testing me. So you're going to go to
Yeah.
Salem. I'm going to get a website to make sure I get it right. You're going to go to salemlf.org and click donate or click support. There it is. Make sure I get the support SLF up in the right corner, and you can support Rainfest. So there's, I think, dozens of um, golfers today out braving February conditions, and they have folks sponsoring them, all in support of SLF's mission to make Salem Kaiser the healthiest community in all of Oregon.
I love
So
that.
salemlf.org, support SLF. That's how you do that.
Yeah, and if you could pick a golfer, you could just pick Kyle Dickinson.
That's right.
Yeah, he's a good sport. So I hope they're having a great time. Hope nobody's falling in the mud because it's quite wet out there, but
Oh, I'm sure there will be
it's
mud.
yeah, probably. But thanks for sharing today.
Yeah. Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to find out more information, have any questions, maybe you're looking for somebody, a consultant, or you're part of a nonprofit and you need some help, we will put Joy's information in the show notes. But you can find her at dickinsonconsultants.com. It's .com,
That's
right?
right. Hmm.
And then she also has LinkedIn, so we'll put your LinkedIn account in our show notes as well. So hope you follow her. Ask her questions if you need. You can reach out to her. And if you do me a favor, just like and follow us as well. It helps women like you find women like Joy and others that are on the show a whole lot easier and faster. So, Joy, thank you again.
Yeah.
And say hello to Kyle for us. And
Will do.
everybody else, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.